And it's now recording.
Interesting, because I heard the blank out of sound when normally I would hear the announcement recording now started or whatever that would be. But I didn't hear it myself, but I did hear the blank out of sound. So is that something you control on your side?
I am not familiar with that, but I do recall you saying that it didn't notify you last time as well. So I'm not sure. And Teams has gone quite a few different updates, so that's something I should ask our IT folks.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Thank you. So welcome everybody to the August 2021 Minneapolis Advisory Committee on People with Disability monthly meeting. Thank you all for being here in attendance. My name is Ken Rogers. I am the chair and I am from Ward 3. Welcome. Can we go down the list, Nick, and people can introduce themselves?
Sure. I'll gladly start first. My name is Nick Ngo. I am the staff support to the Advisory Committee on People with Disabilities, and I work in the Neighborhood and Community Relations Department for the city. First up is Amanda Temple.
Hi, this is Mandy Temple. I'm in Ward 1, and I'm a member. Thank you.
Next, we have Carrie Christensen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carrie Christensen. I'm with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. I'm a senior planner there, and I'm going to be speaking with you this evening about a park project that is online now, and happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm going to keep my camera off, but just thought I'd turn it on to say hello. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Evan Henspeter.
Hello, everyone. Evan Henspeter, member from Ward 11.
Harvey Hoffman.
Hi, everyone. I'm a member of the deaf community. I'm also from the north of Minneapolis ward.
And then we have Kate, one of the ASL interpreters.
Hi, I'm Kate Block. I'm one of the interpreters.
Hi, Joan. We're doing introductions, and you are next up on the list.
Okay. Hi. I will be listening and not participating for the first 20 or so minutes here. Just want to let you know that. So I'm listening and hopefully be able to participate in the next 30 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, Joan. Krista Anderson.
Hello, I'm Krista Anderson, and I'm one of the interpreters.
Trevor Turner.
Hello, everyone. My name is Trevor Turner. I live in Ward 7 and a resident of Minneapolis. I am also the Public Policy Director for the Minnesota Council on Disability.
Then we have, last but not least, Javier Arana.
Okay, this is Javier here, and I'm from the South Minneapolis, and with the deaf community.
That is everyone, Ken.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you all members. Thank you all presenters, and thank you all guests for being here tonight. We have a relatively simple meeting. We do have a quorum, correct? We do.
We do. Yes.
Yep. So I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved, Ken. This is Evan.
Okay, Evan, thank you. Is there a second?
Harvey
second
seconds.
from Harvey.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. One more item of business. It's our minutes from our last meeting. I do have a question before I move for approval. I noticed there is, and I'm drawing a blank, I don't have it in front of me, but there was a presentation provided, and at the end of the presentation, it says, motion to approve. Was that just kind of an out of place statement?
This is Nick. Let me take one quick look. Let's see. Last time we had Met Council. Met Council.
Yeah, it was after Guthrie's report. Then it says something about
approval.
Oh,
action taken, which is approved in the system. The current legislative system. The current legislative system that manages all this. That means that the presentation was received and approved by the committee.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks for that clarification. I just saw that, and I don't remember seeing things like that in the past. It just stuck out, so I wanted to ask just to get a clarification. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Yep. And I believe I had to double check back, but the other options between both is either approved or received in file as well. But both has the same meaning.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions to the minutes anyone have?
This is Mandy. I would recommend, just for plain speech and understanding for our community, to say received and filed, because if we aren't actually taking action on it or approving, I think we shouldn't be using that language.
Yeah, I agree, Mandy. I think that's a great suggestion.
This is Nick. I will make a note of that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Xavier, make a motion.
Okay. Thank you, Xavier. A second.
Second, Evan.
All right. Thank you, Evan.
Or Harvey seconds as well.
Oh, okay. All right. So the minutes have been recommended for approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved. So our first up presentation is Carrie from the Park Board. Take it away, Carrie.
Thank you so much. It's my understanding that we can make the presentation visible now, or folks have a copy. I just wanted to check in on that preference.
Does any member have a preference? What would you like? You did receive an accessible version of the presentation, I think, earlier today from Nick.
So this is Nick. What we could do is spotlight both interpreters. And I'm going to try to remember if this worked last time as well, but we could try to spotlight both and then check if Carrie was to share her screen, if it works for both Javier and Harvey as well. So right now, Krista is spotlighted. I'm going to try to spotlight Kate as well. And then
and I'll try and share my screen and see if it all works.
Yes.
Okay.
There has been a lot of updates to kind of try to meet these different components, so hopefully this works. Krista or Kate, can you check with Harvey and Javier if this works for them?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Harvey can see as well, yes.
Perfect.
Excellent.
And then just checking with all the other committee members, this format works for everyone as well? I'm going to presume that's a yes. So take it away.
Great, thank you. All right, give me one moment here. I'm going to pull up, I had a couple of screens open, so I just need to transition shortly here. All right, so hi everyone again. I am Carrie Christensen with the Park Board. For those of you that maybe missed my introduction, I'm a senior planner and I'm here today to talk to you about a new park project that is coming online. And this park is now called Graco Park. It's along the river in northeast Minneapolis. The bridge that you see in this photo is the Plymouth Bridge. And then the street running along the park is Sibley Street. Marshall is kind of back there behind it. Down here, you'll see Boom Island Park. So if you know the little lighthouse on the island, those are all kind of points of reference if you're familiar with this part of the river. So it's considered above the falls, which is I think it was a largely very industrial part of the river that over the last decade or so, the park board has started to both acquire land and then turn return the river to public access and shifting away from industry. So really kind of a reclaiming of the river for habitat purposes, for people to be close to and access the river for lots of different functions. And you can see on the site here that there's currently a trail also that passes through what we call Graco Park. And that is a critical part of this park design. But you can see that there's not a whole lot else, right? Like it's a pretty blank slate. And Minneapolis Park Board, so we work, you may be familiar with our processes, but we always start with a master plan for a park design. So we have a big picture, 10,000-foot view of what we want the park to be. We work with committees like yours to get input on what that park should be in balance with all the other parks in the system. And then we sort of dial in and say, all right, how do we implement this? Sometimes it takes 20 years to implement, sometimes it takes 10. And it's not very often that we actually get to kind of create a park where there hasn't been one in our system. And Graco Park is an example of that, where about 10 years ago we acquired this land. It was called Scher Brothers Lumber Yard. If you're an old-time Minneapolis resident, you may remember it as a lumber yard. They actually filled in the area between the shoreline that you see, the little beachy area, and the island was actually filled in and used as lumberyard as well. So in 2017, Minneapolis Park Board, in collaboration with the Department of Natural Resources and the Watershed District, actually rebuilt the island with the primary function of it acting as habitat. There's really interesting animals and wildlife in this part of the river. There's actually native mussels occurring in the river that there's some soil medium and stuff along the shore that's there especially for those mussels. If you've seen the herons, there's great blue herons along the river here. Of course, lots of other different migratory birds that rely on these wild spaces along the river. But the park is also, potentially going to be lots of other things, right? So the habitat is central to the island. But the question that we are posing now to community is what should this park be? There was an interesting kind of legal action that happened a couple of years ago where the park board had an easement. So the adjacent landowner is called Graco. They are a production and processing I think they create pumps, so they have like a industrial use of the site. And we had an easement, so we had basically approval to take the trail in front of their headquarters. But then they ended up saying, actually, no, we are not going to give you this easement. And so we went into a legal, sort of into the court to resolve this, and came out with a settlement, which resulted in selling off a small portion of the park. But in exchange, they brought a lot of funding with that selling of the property brought funding into the park development right away. The Graco Foundation donated millions of dollars. We also, so then, we're looking now at saying, all right, we thought we were going to be developing this park in 10 years, but we actually get to start to work on it now. And so that's what we're out in community, working with these kind of high level ideas that were put forth in a master plan 10 years ago, and coming back out to community and saying, okay, we've got this opportunity to build out this new park along the river. What would you like to see? And so we started engagement in June of this year, and did some just high level overviews, and wanted to come to you today, as you were actually the maiden voyage for us in this round of engagement, to get feedback on these concepts. We've taken a lot of initial feedback. We have 3 concepts that I'm going to share with you tonight, design concepts for your feedback. I wanted to come to you all, rather than coming once a month, thought just to come when this is a really kind of meaty time for conversation in the process, and trying to work with a lot of the standing committees at the city for input at this stage, including neighborhood organizations. We've engaged with youth. We've engaged with local community groups, cultural groups. So, and also always looking for other groups to work with and get input from. So if there are other groups that you're affiliated with that you'd like to invite us to come and speak, by all means, please let me know, drop me a line. I'll share my email, my phone number at the end of the presentation. All right, so just quick timeline overall with the project. There's actually, so you'll see that second timeline element says letter of interest, submittal period closed, which we have a park board building that will also be going in the park. And we actually have an open call for tenants of that building, community groups that are affiliated with parks or based in the community, to see if anyone would like to share that building with us. And so we closed that call. We're now interviewing potential tenants. And now we're putting this in August and September 2021. You'll see that third line. We're coming out and doing this second round of engagement, which is what I'm here with tonight. And then we'll come back out this fall with a preferred concept. So one final concept, or one preferred concept for community feedback again, which I'd be happy to come back and present to you, or I can share with you online if you want to just take a look at the concept and see if it reflects the comments that you make today or over the next month. Virtually, we'll have all sorts of different platforms for folks.
Hi, Carrie. This is Harvey. I have a question.
Yes.
One moment here. So what I'm wondering is, do you want us to type our questions or to raise our hand? Or do you prefer me, how do you want me to, how does your process in answering questions go?
I think, why don't we do this? So I'm unable to see chat right now. So I wonder if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. And then maybe at the end, I'll close up the presentation and then I can look at the chat and just respond to all the questions at once. Does that work for everyone rather than?
Oh, sure, no problem.
And then we can open it up for questions and comments, just casual conversation, after I present, and then I can also go through the chat and respond to questions. So feel free to ask questions in either way. Just know that we'll have time at the end for conversation. Thanks for that question. Does that work for everyone? If I don't hear anything, I'll assume it works. All right.
Says that works great.
Great, thanks. Okay, so then this fall, we bring the final concept, the park design, to our board, the Park Board of Commissioners, to approve. And then starting in spring of 2022, we'll start putting the kind of turning the wheels on the construction process. So we send it out to bid. Hopefully the bids come back. The construction industry is a little crazy right now, as you may know. So we will then come back and start construction this hopefully next summer. All right, I will show some concepts with more details. So I see a question. Actually, I'm getting questions on my phone, so it's handy. I can see as we go. I will come back to the question around the tenant building here shortly. All right, so just wanted to give a quick overview of what we did in the first round of engagement. So again, I think I mentioned a lot of these neighborhood meetings. We did some pop-up meetings in the park itself. Of course, we're kind of limited with what we can do in person these days, but also are convening a project advisory committee, a technical advisory committee, lots of online engagement and outreach, public open house, and we also had a youth engagement bus tour. So we had quite a number, pretty good number of turnout in terms of the online engagement. So over 170 comments or commenters responded to the online survey, and we had about 100 attendees across these different project meetings. And then just always, it's important for us at the park board to try to track who we're hearing from. So with the online responses, we were able to collect demographic information. So just looking at ethnicity, gender, and age, roughly representative of the city of Minneapolis residential population. So that tends to be our goal for regional park projects. As we say, we're really working to hear from folks that represent the population of Minneapolis, right? We want the people that are coming to the table to reflect our community. And if you're into the stats, these charts generally are reflective of the population of Minneapolis. And then what we heard. So starting from the top, sort of what we heard, what people were most excited about having in the park. A lot of folks said, yep, nature and habitat is really important to us. A lot of interest in extreme sports like skate parks or pump tracks. Trail is such a big part of this park. So I can talk more about the trail, but the East Bank Trail, the idea is that it'll connect all the way up and down the river, from St. Paul to the city limits eventually. And if you've traveled the northeast and southeast Minneapolis trails along the river, you know that there's several kind of gaps along the way, in part because of its industrial past. And so how do we find ways to connect this trail across intersections? How do we find a way to connect this trail, through when there's industry? Sort of getting creative around this trail connectivity piece is a big part of this project. Water activities were another really popular idea. Trees, if you've been on the site, it's not a very shady spot. So how do we create more shade and bring habitat through the trees? Having some kind of marketplace or vendor, concessions, food, ways for folks to kind of be in the park and enjoy, experience entertainment. Education and interpretation were a really big, also sort of priority for folks. And then we're starting to work our way down the list. Maybe I'll stop here and just say, arts and then community gathering are two other topics that I think really rose to the top. But all of these topics on this list are things that came up during the engagement that people were interested in. So really all of these could be considered priorities. I just focused on the first top half of the list. And then, so this idea of a park board building, which I'm going to talk more about, we're really trying to re-envision what park board building might be on this site. So moving away from a traditional rec center, so recreation center model, which if you have a neighborhood park near you, you may have experienced a recreation center. They, typically will have park board programming, sometimes public restrooms, and are certainly really important anchoring institutions in neighborhoods. This is a regional park, so it's it's meant to kind of serve a broader community. And we're thinking a little differently about what this building will be. So we still hope to have community space in the building, and just general sort of very flexible uses there, and as well as having tenants that can help us sort of have eyes on the space or help us keep the building open longer hours. If you've gone to a rec center, you may know that we have pretty limited hours. They typically coincide with after school hours, so like 3 to 8 p.m. But if we have tenants that are also committed to being in a public space and helping us keep this building activated, then we can keep the building open longer. So we heard indoor-outdoor flow, sort of that connection between the park and the inside is important. We heard this multi-purpose community space was important to folks. We heard public restrooms are really important. We heard sustainable building materials were important. Again, that idea of vendors or food and drink concessions came up as something. Also comments specifically related to gender-neutral restrooms, music, connections to the river, education spaces, workshops. Again, that incorporation of art, rec and fitness spaces, and on. So again, the kind of list goes on. Maybe I'll end with this last section. So acknowledges traditional lands, a rental event space. So lots of ideas for the building and interests on what that might be. So shortly here, I'm going to show you 3 concepts. And I will, this is just sort of the general components of the site. So I mentioned the East Bank Trail. There's also, this is a pretty low, it's next to the river, so it's actually a flood zone. And so how do we design a park that can accommodate flooding, or how do we regrade areas where we can protect buildings from flooding? It's got really great views of Minneapolis. There is that restored habitat on Halls Island. That's a wonderful starting place for creating habitat in the area. There's that beachy area, which is actually more of a gravel landing. There's a lot of, there's pretty active vehicle flow here on Plymouth, so lots of cars. And it's an unsignaled intersection currently between Boom Island and Graco Park. This is a city of Minneapolis owned road, so the park board does not own Plymouth or 8th, which sort of transitions from 8th to Plymouth here. There's an idea of a tunnel. So when we think about getting across, between parks, how do we do that? And one of the ideas that we're playing with and really exploring pretty deeply is this idea of an underpass or a tunnel connecting Boom Island to Graco Park, which is a pretty expensive undertaking, but we're very seriously considering it. The bridge, going by the river is another idea, but there's actually really limited clearance between the river and the bridge, just where the bridge was constructed. It would require like a full bridge reconstruction, which is not our bridge to reconstruct. And then there's future trail connections. Like I mentioned, there's sort of fragmented parts of the East Bank Trail that even need to get resolved over in Boom Island. And there's a big parking lot in Boom Island, which is just across the street. And then a lot of green space down in Boom Island. So we're always kind of looking at the context around us to make sure that the park we're designing is going to make sense in the context that surrounds it. All right, so without further ado, these are some of the concepts. We have 3 concepts that we are sharing with community as, hey, we heard all these great ideas in the first round of engagement. And now, what do you think? Like, here's our best shots at some ideas. The concepts, the final concept this fall will likely be a combination of all 3 concepts that we're going to be looking at now. And it won't be like concept 1 is the winner, right? So there's going to be bits and elements and aspects of each of the concepts that will be incorporated into the final design.
Carrie, before you continue, there are a few questions in the chat, but the way that I'll try to frame this is, so I'll note some of the questions for you to kind of keep in mind as you're describing each concept design that might be able to address them. They're pretty universal questions. The first one is around the park facility. You mentioned potential use as a gender neutral restroom. I think in conjunction with that, what about adult changing tables? Another question is really centered around wayfinding, particularly for folks that are blind, use wheelchairs, or deaf or limited mobility to maneuver around the park and the I believe what you call interpretation, so braille signage and whatnot, and along and then I think just when we're talking about the treatment for the safe crossing for pedestrian crossing, bus stops as well, and then kind of what the trail makeups are like. So if they're multi-use or dedicated bike lanes, or is it pedestrian only? So a lot of those are kind of the more universal questions that you could kind of explain for each concept design.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Great question.
Hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so thanks for that. And I'm gonna share a brief description of the site, and then I'll just highlight a few of the specifics. The concept one, the park is laid out along a critical piece of the East Bank Trail, linking Boom Island and the Central Mississippi Riverfront Regional Park to the still evolving Above the Falls Regional Park. So as I mentioned, we're reclaiming parkland up and down the river. That's the Above the Falls Regional Park. Using a passage under 8th Avenue Northeast, the East Bank Trail offers a pedestrian and bicyclist experience uninterrupted by roadways by roadways. So this is the one concept that has that underpass. That's number 12. And within Graco Park, the East Bank Trail splits, with one branch becoming a promenade along the gravel landing of the channel and mussel beds resulting from the recreation of Halls Island, or recreation of Halls Island, and the other path catching traffic from the Plymouth Ave Bridge and looping toward park supporting buildings near Sibley Street. The paths rejoin at the point where the East Bank Trail leads upstream to Sheridan Memorial Park, where a pedestrian bridge spans the new channel to Halls Island here, and then it heads upstream there to Sheridan. While the southern portion of the park is open for views to the island and allows for open and unprogrammed field play, the northern portion of the park is divided into a series of smaller activity zones. So in the activity zones that we have called out here would be like a sand volleyball court, could be an option for an activity. And then there's also dog park concept, and that's number 6 in that northern area. You've got the buildings along Sibley. And so the idea is there might be a future vendor site here, which is that concessions piece. That's not something we'll be building out in this stage. So it's just noted as a future project potentially. And then the MPRB multi-use building and community office building could be in 2 separate buildings. There would be public restrooms here. And when we start getting down into the building design, that is the time when things like adult changing tables and configurations of public restroom designs will be out for comment as well. So this fall, these are really still at that sort of 5,000-foot view. This fall, when we come back out with preferred concept, we will have actually a building design as well. And so folks can review more closely at that stage, but I am going to carry your comments tonight around building design specifics to our design team so that they can have that information for the design process. So anything is really helpful now. So let's see, the parking, I know that was a question. The thought is, there's not a ton of room on this site to do another big parking lot. And there's actually a lot of unused parking at Boom Island across the street. So the concept here is to consider big event parking at Boom Island. The underpass would be how people would get to Graco Park. The number 15 shows a small parking lot would be more for loading or accessible spots. would be focused on at 15. There's also street parking on Sibley, so there are additional spots there if you're interested in parking. I can talk a little bit about the split path. So at the park board in general, we really try to split pedestrian and bike paths whenever possible, whenever there's space. And so having pedestrian circulation go one way and bikes go another way, so it's not what we call a shared use trail, is our preference. And many of our parkways try to do that. You know, sometimes space gets narrow and we're not able to accomplish that. But I can say in this configuration, we would be able to have bikes separated from pedestrians or, you know, or other folks, creatures walking, so rolling, etc. So I think the last feature I'll just point out here is there's also a playful water element, sort of splash pads / public art, maybe just a fountain that can kind of sit near and have mist fall. So that's something that hasn't yet been designed, but is being proposed here as well. All right, I'm going to keep, this is a rendering of that, sort of a 3D axonometric view of the site. There is a future building that Graco will likely be putting on the area kind of behind the park, which is called out in this drawing. And that they've talked about even a 6-story high building. So if you think about the park, it's important to kind of keep in your mind's eye this idea of a big backdrop of a building. All right, so maybe I'll pause and just see if there's any questions about this first concept, and then I'll move on to the next one. Does that work?
Yes, this is Nick. Just other than questions that were shared before, the additional one is, can you explain more about the unsignaled intersection?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, at the end of, I'm going to go through 2 more concepts, and then I have actually some intersection treatments that I'm going to share with you for feedback as well. So if that's all right, I'll come to that in a moment after I run through the concepts. So this is the intersection that we're talking about right there. Anything else, anything jumping out at folks about this concept that that looks appealing or looks challenging or is not appealing? Just curious.
Harvey, your hand is raised. Are there any other questions or comments that you would like to provide?
Hi, this is Harvey. Nope, that's okay. I'll wait.
Okay.
Yeah, and it might be good to see all 3 concepts, and then we can run back if folks are interested. All right, so concept 2. This is, let's see, I'm going to pull my notes up here. The park is centered on a gathering space bordered by buildings and landscape, extending eastward as an events plaza and westward to a viewing platform over the gravel landing and the new channel created by the Halls Island. It's almost like a dock, right? So in the dock-like fashion, the gathering space links the neighborhood to the river and becomes the front door to and connection between the park activating buildings. Pathways link through the site, filling the gap of the East Bank Trail between Boom and Central Mississippi Riverfront Regional Park and the Above the Falls Regional Park. Broad green on the south side of the dock affords opportunities for gathering and play with views of the new island. And yeah, these dotted lines, on each of the renderings are actually the flood barrier. So that's basically kind of the level, it'll be lots of grading and kind of engineering to think about what spaces will flood. So anything on the river side of that dotted line will flood on occasion. And these are 100-year flood levels, which means it's going to be pretty infrequent that these would flood. But that's what that dotted line means if you're curious. In this one, there's a small parking lot for the similar functions as the one I showed before. But this interesting kind of dock experience. No underpass in this one, just relying on intersection treatments to get folks from one park to the other. No bridge, just an overlook and out to the island. Any questions on this one? Otherwise, I can roll on to the third concept.
Carrie, this is Nick. Just to clarify, the difference in this design compared to the first concept design is a little bit more kind of dedicated open space or green space compared to various activity spots. Am I capturing that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like this first concept's a little more programmed, right? With the splash pad and volleyball courts and a dog park. But also the buildings are really kind of stuck back along Sibley Street. And this one is bringing the buildings out into the site, creating this like central plaza with a big green space, but much less programmed. So we call, fewer activities in this park. But except for, this interesting kind of plaza connection.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Comments? This is that again. Yeah, please.
Yeah, this is Harvey speaking. I think number one is a lot better because there already are a lot of recreational paths or walking paths, et cetera, available, particularly north of where this park or this place is going to be, or on the east side of the river. There's a lot of stuff already there. I mean, why would we want to double? I think number one is great as far as visitable. There's some activities there. That's just my opinion.
Great, thank you. I like opinions. Anyone else have any preferences just between those two? And I've got one other I can show. All right, so this is concept 3. Since you are the first group that I'm presenting this to, these are actually hot off the press. I got them from the design team, literally got them to Nick at like 5 minutes to 4 last night, and he was wonderful for accommodating our last minute bringing this to you. And we're just really opening up. We haven't even gotten the website live. By the way, that we intend to get that live by this coming Monday. So if you're interested in doing a deeper dive and looking at these and doing some writing about it, there will definitely be, I'll share a website with you. But again, it's not quite live. We just wanted to make sure to come and speak with you. So this is important to just get this to you now. But this concept is still a little bit in development. It's heavier on the habitat side. So it's really got a lot of tree canopy. You can see all those green circles represent additional tree canopy, and the buildings kind of playing with some of the historic lines of the site. So the rail spur and Water Street, but then also intermingling again with habitat. So kind of this historical play on the site. There's also a proposed art walk. So these small boxes represent public art pieces. And this one too, there's no bridge out to the island. It's more of an overlook. No underpass under Plymouth. Multiple paths through the site, one coming off of Sibley straight out to the river, and another just meandering from the intersection over to up into Sheridan. All of the projects, all of the 3 concepts do include stormwater treatment. So, whenever we add impervious surfaces or hard surfaces to a park, just like any other property owner in the city, we need to offset that or try to capture our stormwater, or else we pay fees. So capturing stormwater in the park will also be kind of incorporated into all of the different design concepts that are shown. For this one, there's sort of prairie, there's forest, there's different types of native landscapes in here. You can think of them as native landscape terraces. Any questions on concept 3? All right, so now I'm going to come to the intersection treatments. So here we are. This is Graco Park. This is the current trail, which this trail will get rebuilt, and again will likely be separated bike and pedestrian. And when we talk about what this will look like, it's in all of the iterations, whether there's an underpass or not, we've already started working with the city, and we hope to continue working with the city to make improvements at this intersection. So the potential intersection safety improvements include pedestrian flashers, curb extensions, raised crossings, protected intersection, safety islands, two-way bikeway transitions, mixing zones, and access control. I know that's a lot of traffic jargon, but some graphics here just to give some examples of what those look like. These are both from the City of Minneapolis Street Design Guide, and then from MnDOT has a bike facility design manual. And the thing about this road, Plymouth is actually a state aid road, which putting a signal at the end of a state aid road and a bridge is not a feasible option. So thinking about other ways to slow traffic here and make that crossing safer for folks is, it feels like it's not an option for this project, right? Like we know now that we've got to make intersection improvements as part of this project. But again, we aren't able to signalize it due to the status of the state aid road, but we are able to incorporate some creative ways to slow traffic here and create safer ways for folks to cross. So that I think we can spend time kind of digging into each of these. I'm not a traffic engineer, right? So I don't have all the nuts and bolts answers potentially, but would just be curious if there are different crossing experiences, especially at unsignalized crossings, that different elements of crossing a road like Plymouth that would be helpful for us to consider as we move into the design of this. We're just kind of examining options. We haven't proposed any of these. It could be many of these, right? So it could be a curb extension with the median refuge island, with the rapid flashing beacon, with signage, with additional striping, with mode separated striping. So my guess is that we'll actually go with multiple treatments of this intersection. And so that's it for my presentation. I will share the website with you, and you all have a copy of this presentation. But before I leave, just want to open it up for any other questions or comments on these intersection treatments.
This is Nick. There is one comment that was submitted. Is there any, actually this is a question and then a comment as well. Is there a parking facility included in concept 3? And then concept 3 has a lot of trees and we have lots upstream.
There is actually no parking lot proposed in concept 3. It is just street parking. But there still, again, is that additional parking at Boom Island. And then, I'll make note of your comment about lots of trees.
And then this is Nick again, just for clarity, because I don't go to that area a lot, and more folks probably have better experience there than me. The street parking that's currently there, is that paid parking or is it just kind of open parking where folks can?
It's just open parking. Yep.
Okay.
It's not paid parking.
And this is Ken. I've got a question related to the intersection. Is there a particular reason why a state aid road can't have an intersection or a signal there? Is it because of the number of vehicles that pass through there is too high, or what's the reason that's given for a signal not being able to be put there?
I may have to get back to you with the exact reasoning and the relationship between state aid. But I think your hunch is accurate, and that's that it's traffic volumes, but it's also level of service. So how quickly are folks getting kind of across town? And I know that state aid roads, one of their biggest functions is like linking, right? Is like the idea of linking across town or moving vehicles pretty efficiently across a larger network. So that's my layperson understanding of state aid roads. I think the other issue though is that it's the end of a bridge, and having a signal at the end of a bridge, regardless of if it's a state aid road, I think there's also challenges with that, maybe because of sight lines, the parking sequence. So that I'm happy to come back and bring someone that actually does traffic engineering and design, and specializes in that and can give you a much better answer than me, or I can send along some information around state aid roads to Nick as a follow-up. So let me know.
Yeah, I would appreciate some greater detail, and even the ability to hear from a traffic engineer might be helpful. I have a very visceral response whenever I hear red rapid flashing light. I don't know what you call them. There's.
Yeah, I think the rapid flashing beacon, is that those where you press the button?
Exactly. I have a visceral reaction to that. Every bone in my body is in defense of that. I hate those. They are not safe for blind people. They're not safe for deaf blind people. And people want to put them all over the place as a substitute for where a signal doesn't work, or where it's too costly to put a signal. And I am adamantly opposed to those. They are dangerous. They're not safe. And especially in a place that we're trying to entice foot traffic and trail traffic and bikes, that's just a recipe for disaster in my mind. And I just want to raise that red flag right away. I don't know if there are other treatments that could be looked at, but they're horrible. They do not require someone to stop. They're suggestive of traffic stopping, but I myself have had a very close call with a 2-lane road with one person close to me stopping. I think it's safe to enter the crosswalk. I start to cross, and then a car tries to bypass the one that stopped and nearly clipped me while I'm in the crosswalk at a red rapid flashing place. So those are very dangerous. A blind person can never be safely sure that they can cross safely. And so I hate those. And it's a personal bias of mine, but from safety perspective, anytime there's an increased number of people in the vicinity, that worries me.
Thank you. That's really important insights. I'll bring it to the design team. And I think that idea of a false sense of security is a critical, especially if folks driving don't know what it means, that's also, in the realm of possibility. So any of these that are, raised crossings, that's where you have an elevated sidewalk where it almost creates like a speed table for cars, is one of the ideas. Curb extensions, which, bumps out the curbs so the roadway actually narrows and there's more space for folks to gather on the corner and wait to cross. Safety island or safety medians, having a curbed space that folks can be at in the middle of the intersection is also within the realm of possibilities. And I think, and then protected intersections, which is bringing a bike lane up onto the curb and then back down onto the street when they get onto the Plymouth Bridge. So those are some of the other options. I don't know if anyone has thoughts on any of those other specific ones.
So I will again jump in. So anytime you have an island or a refuge that there is potential for somebody to stop. I mean, the whole reason that concept is being suggested is for safety reasons. And again, how is a blind person standing in the middle in a safety refuge gonna be clear to know that they are safe to then step back into the street on the other end? It's the same situation. It's just a different option. That to me creates a safety issue. And if you don't have any controlled signal to ensure that there's going to be a reasonably safe crossing that's dangerous.
Thank you.
This is Nick. I believe Harvey has his hand raised. Harvey, did you have a comment or question?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, my brain is jumping around and trying to keep up. So I think it would be really nice if we could put maybe the two concepts from together into one. One moment here.
Sure. Well,
so putting concept number 1 and 2 together for the visibility, for the volleyball courts, and adding that in there for concept 1 and 2 together.
Yeah. Before we do, I'm sorry. Before we do that, I think there's one final mention inside the chat regarding the pedestrian crossing, and that's from Mandy, in terms of her agreeing with safety islands without signals. It's not safe. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that we taper off this conversation. Wonderful. And again, this is Nick. The only other thing with those options, I wish Margot was here because Margot would provide a better comment on it, is I think raised intersections and winter maintenance might be a little problematic during the winter. I believe for folks with different mobility devices. That part I'm trying to remember, but if other committee members remember her usual points on that, that'd be great. But outside of that, if no one else has any comments on the pedestrian crossing, we could go back to the concept designs. Cool. So Carrie, there are 2 more comments for concept design conversation. One from Mandy. While I'm going to quote it because I think it'll be better. Quote, while I love more trees, I also think of sightlines, safety, lighting, EMT access points. Concept 2 or concept 1 would be better, end quote. And then another comment that she made is that she does agree with Harvey in terms of combining various parts of both concepts 1 and 2 together. And Mandy, if you'd like to expand on that, floor is yours.
I don't know if that pause is technical or if there's nothing to add.
Sorry, this is Mandy. It wasn't. So I want to thank Nick for reading out the chat. We have to do that as part of public meetings. So thanks for doing that while I couldn't unmute. I believe that there's different aspects of 1 and 2 that lend itself not just to flow and navigation waypoints, but also, again, for security, safety and lighting. We want people to feel safe and welcome. And I've seen designs that have some great amount of trees, but the vantage point, if someone is lost or injured or being approached, is not very good. I also wanted to point out, because of where the bridge is, you want to make sure that what's underneath it are trees and not function space. Thinking about, again, how people use spaces from different elevation points is really important to consider. I think from an accessibility standpoint, there are several examples of incorporating nature, like some of the nature parks that we have that could be included in some of the points of 1 and 2 to bring in more designated nature or green space without sacrificing the visibility of and promoting safety. You do need to think about light pollution and other things. When you think about how the park is going to be used, everything from where the art is placed, seating, accessible path of travel. So I think there's lots of little components of it that might be more suitable for our access committee as these move forward to discuss components of the plans. But I'm not sure that's a good thing to get in too much in the weeds for this first discussion. Nick, is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, and then if I were to channel Margot on the issue of the accessible paths of travel in crossing streets, I thought Ken did a really good job of talking about audible versus flashing lights and how that impacts different people with different disabilities in different ways, both negative and positive. So does the raised intersections, and it's not just about signal placing. It has a lot to do with snow removal, where the snow piles up, where people are positioned or backed up into that space. So I think an example that we see is the green treatments. I'm going to use an example in St. Paul, right by the stadium, Allianz Field. They have a bunch of cross points because it's too wide and it's arced right by the freeway. And even with proper signaling, lighting, different treatments, the complexity of that space, they still have to have traffic cops, and people are trampling over some of the treatments. People are tripping on some of the treatments. And it makes it actually less accessible when there's a volume of people. So I think one of the things that you have to think about is how many people do you expect to cross at any given time? And then also design that treatment, whether it's for one or individuals with adaptive equipment, so that it's wide enough to get through. Because often when we see those treatment designs, they meet the minimum code, but the amount of people coming through, it's often too narrow. So I think of like a service animal and someone using a motorized wheelchair or scooter at the same time. That's the examples that come to mind when I think of what Margot would talk about. So I'm going to end there, and if that jogs anybody else's memories to channel Margot on your shoulder, go for it.
That was great, by the way. Thank you so much. All the comments are very helpful. Really grateful for your time tonight. I know I've taken up longer than I anticipated, and just want to honor if you have other things on your agenda. And again, I do have a website that I'm going to share with Nick when it goes live, and maybe can pass it on to. It's on the last page of the presentation as well, but I'll just send out a reminder when it goes live, hopefully early next week. And again, I'm happy to come back if it'd be helpful. Also, just for more detailed discussions on crossings or building design, if there's a committee that would be maybe a more appropriate place for a deeper dive, let me know, and I can just sort of stay in touch with Nick on your thoughts.
Yeah, and Carrie, this is Ken. I want to thank you for coming and allowing us. Excuse me, I've got a tickle. to be your guinea pigs for your first presentation at this level. As you can imagine, and as I think a lot of our comments have alluded to, there's a lot of devil in the detail, and so we're really happy to share some of the bigger chunks of issues that often don't get looked at until much later in the process. So we're happy to kind of lay that groundwork so that it gets incorporated early. So, excuse me, my suggestion is come back frequently and often, and we're always here to provide our input and some guidance. So appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation, and I will be back. I hope. I hope your tickle works out, and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
I've saved the chat, Nick, just so you know, and I would love the recording if that's at all possible. I don't know if you post that, but
yes, this is Nick. We do post our recorded boards and commissions meetings, and
I'll look for it then.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll send you the link off our city's YouTube page. Yep.
Have a great night, and thank you for your service to our system and our city. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Anybody have anything? Anybody want to add or bring up?
Sure. This is Nick, and I do have a few house cleaning items. I think you alluded to it earlier, but I just wanted the full community to know that I am scheduled to go on paternity leave starting August 23rd, barring if anything happens from now until then, which is not too far from now. But I do plan to be out for roughly 6 weeks. And in that time, one of my colleagues, Christina Kendrick, will step in to help support the committee in the September meeting. So I think in the email, I include information that we do have a few big items coming our way. It's a matter of kind of figuring out which is going to be more timely in terms of the city's related work and events. So I believe for the September meeting, if I'm able to forecast, we will have elections coming just to provide their updates on a lot of what they have set up for the upcoming city election. We also have, I believe, Transforming Community Safety coming back as well for part of their phase engagement. The big one that I've been trying to get to the committee is our new city office building and the public service center in it. The setback is that the lead staff that typically works with us on a lot of the accessibility of city facilities left the city a few weeks ago. So property service is trying to catch up in their overall work projects and coming to the committee as well. So that probably is forecasted for October. I do see, Mandy, I see your hand raised, and just one more thing as well as an update. Christina Kendrick is also working with to make sure that we are able to do everyone's oath of office. Actually, we prior to COVID, we typically have someone come and issue the oath of office for committee members, but rather than having her show up to everyone's house throughout the day, or having y'all come to City Hall or finding your own notary, we're working on having it done via the committee next month over Teams. The recording will help, and then she's just having to go through a extra layer of certification to do it virtually at the moment. And Mandy, your hand's raised.
So I wanted to talk briefly, since we have the time, about what the city is planning for October for Disability Employment Awareness Month.
Sure.
And how we might be engaged as part of that process. Historically, we've done things in the past or supported the efforts or spotlighted or talked about a communication plan for the efforts that the city is doing. So just wanted to know, I know we're going to have a busy meeting in September. And normally we have something planned in August, final implementation happens in September, and then we execute the plan in October. So I'm just wondering how we might go about collaborating with the city or NCR to promote National Disability Employment Awareness Month in October with the city.
This is Nick. That is a good question that I do not have an answer to at the moment. Can we connect a little bit later offline to
Sure,
go
maybe that could be passed up to David and maybe taken on over email with a quick report or update in September?
We could explore that. And my apologies, maybe I should have mentioned this as well. In regards to my update on my planned leave, I am creating backup plans in terms of folks that could help cover some of my responsibilities while I'm out. In regards to that, David is typically the person that would step in to manage all ADA related questions, complaints, or situations, or just support in general. He is the city's formal ADA Title II coordinator, and I'm, um, the person that directly reports to David. The unfortunate part is that David is actually currently out on leave, FMLA leave for health-related reasons. He's gone for, I believe, until the end of September. So we're kind of down capacity at the moment. So on that, Mandy, perhaps while I'm still here.
Let's definitely take it offline and figure out an appropriate scale and scope for participation. Then it could be updated and proposed to the group either via email or at the September meeting.
Yep. And Harvey, I see your hand raised. Yes.
We're also not giving the community support we haven't received it in the last 2 years. So maybe now's the time for us to talk about that as well. And getting that community award and maybe a community sponsor for disabilities, just throwing that out there. Wanted to see what you guys all thought.
This is Mandy. I'm not sure if we have the capacity to do that or the time. Generally, in the past, we've done it in October. There was a period of time where it was done in July, but normally that takes 3 or 4 months lead time to take nominations for awards, to go through a selection process, to provide a statement and certificate.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm not sure we would have time to do that with this scenario, but I do agree. It'd be nice to propose bringing that back, and that could be a discussion. Sometimes we've had community speakers or open forums, invited people to our October meetings, and featured presentations for the community, not just for the committee. That maybe could be done in a short period of time. But considering, it's an election year, a lot of people we don't want to politicize any of our topics. So again, I'm just not sure if it's a good year to do it either. And I'll stop there for anyone who wants to comment.
Yeah, this is Ken. So I agree that we really need to get this back on our schedule. I totally agree with Manny right now. We are half the number that we would normally be in terms of a committee. That's distressing to me. I want to physically work on that and get our committee up to a higher strength level so that we do have more capacity, and we can start planning things. I think this whole period that we've been through with COVID has really just kind of put everything on hold for a while, and we've just been maintaining and barely doing that. We've been holding up our part in hearing presentations and giving advice and things, but little else has had much time or room for energy. And I really want to focus on increasing our capacity, getting our numbers back up. So if you have acquaintances that live, work, and play in the city and are interested in serving on the committee, please pass their names forward to me and we can do some outreach to them. I that's an area I want to work on. And I almost also, the other thing that's in the back of my mind is with this Delta variant raging right now, we're finding ourselves in a wait and see atmosphere at the state level for employment. All the state agencies were making plans to return back to some sort of normalcy in the office. That's all been put on hold again. Our new target date is nothing prior to October 1st now, when we were already starting to phase back into the office. So everything's again on hold. And until we really know what's happening with this Delta variant, I think we need to also be nimble. And again, with limited energy and limited capacity, there's just a worry of putting a lot of energy into something that may or may not happen just because we're in this, again, this waiting time of trying to figure out what's going to happen. So I just throw that out as things to think about, but I hear everything that everyone's saying. I think those are all incredibly important ideas. We need to get back on track, and that's certainly going to be my goal for the next year. Any other thoughts, comments? Right, hearing none. Go ahead, Harvey.
One thing I was saying that I've seen people who are already active in the community, regardless of COVID. And so we don't want to miss them. So if you do know of anybody, I don't know, I'm just kind of throwing that out there too. Maybe we can discuss it in the next meeting as well. But that's the reason why I had brought it up too, for like those certifications and recognizing that. And it could be something that would be short term, but that was just kind of my 2 cents that I had. And I just don't want people who are burn out, and that's really what's happening is people will get burnt out after a couple of years and then they disappear. And then again, obviously that's what happened previously, and then COVID hit. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you, Harvey.
Ken, this is Joan.
Yeah, go ahead, Joan.
Finally, I'm not in my car, which is like why I can speak now. What Mandy has mentioned, and you as well. Yeah, since I'm the longstanding member of this committee, we do need to get back to square one. But yeah, the elephant in the room is that Delta, virus that's upon us, and so I think, as much as we want to do something for October, it does take time. So I'm going to suggest that the executive committee or whomever, or the committee itself decides like what 2 committees do we want to start up come January 22 and start the new year off with these committees. That's what I'm going to throw out for a suggestion, that we, because hopefully by January, maybe things will be settled to some degree.
Okay, thank you, Joan. Go ahead, Harvey.
This is Nick. I believe that's from when he had.
Oh, from before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Harvey. Sorry, I just put my hand down. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries, no worries.
And I believe Mandy just commented that in support of Joan's statement in terms of bringing back the committees, such as the Access Committee.
Yeah, and to that end, and one of the things that I was going to reach out to Nick about is to figure out if he has any capacity while he may be on parental leave, um, between he and I, to get an article in Access Press um, advertising the work of our committee and asking for people to step forward if they are interested in serving on the committee. I'd also like to get an article written and put in the neighborhood community relations newsletter that goes out for the city, advertising the same thing. I really want to focus, concerted focus between now and the end of the year to get our membership built. That takes time as well. People need to come and attend a meeting before they commit. And so all of this stuff takes time, but I really want, I think that's our first step, is to develop and rebuild our committee to a full complement. And then we can start again, begin to appoint committees and start doing some work that's split out between us all. So that's my intention and my goal for the next couple of weeks. And I encourage others, if you have ideas of how we can advertise, beat the bushes a little bit, I'm all ears. Okay, anybody else? Thoughts, comments, questions?
Ken, it's Joan one more last time here.
Yeah.
How much outreach have we done to council members?
That's a good question. I don't think we have done any outreach to council members, so that's another really important place.
Right. Well, and I think each one of us, represent a ward. So I would, rather than putting this all on you and Amanda, and I don't know who else is on the executive committee, but I think each one of us as members need to have that conversation with our council members about, and I know you did mention, yes, it is election year, so this may not, right now, it's just not good timing, but to talk with the council members of, do they know of some people with disabilities in their community, and et cetera. And so to have that conversation, that's really, it should be up to us as members to help with this as well. And I'm going to bug out. I've got a class I got to get online for, but I'm thinking about a lot of things we can do here. So you can, if you need some help with some of that, Ken, you can give me a call.
Okay. Thank you, Joan.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Hi, this is Mandy again. So I'm not currently on the exec committee. I don't know who's left, who is besides Ken at this point.
Yeah.
But I think, I would agree that renewing our council member outreach in 2022 for those who are returning or any new council members would be important. I think we have been reaching out to council members throughout, and if you look at our last minutes from June, we were reaching out to council members on the parking issue that we felt needed to be addressed with the ordinance for new no parking buildings, residentials. So I think there's things that we're doing. We could do a better job of documenting that, assigning tasks and duties of our membership, so that we can report back either in writing or at meetings. It's not that this hasn't been going on or just one or two people have been doing it. I mean, Donna used to have a constant relationship with her council member, and we want to be able to support and train new committee members on issues and topics and collaboration, the same way that we want to do outreach to council members. We can look at what other committees are doing to as they reorganize under, you know, returning or new administrations, and look at, you know, how they're adapting to COVID to do training and orientation and inclusion. Generally, when we have a bunch of new members, we do an orientation session for the committee. So, I mean, there's lots of things we can do. And maybe October is, you know, a planning meeting to talk about what we think our future tasks should be, as well as, you know, hearing about the new city building updates. But I'm assuming that November is going to be looked at, you know, as an update from elections. Sometimes we get that, you know, later in winter once things are certified. But we, you know, we should be planning in October what we're going to be doing for November and December. We should always be planning, you know, 2 months ahead if we can. So I think right now what we're doing is talking about what's on deck for September and October. And at the September meeting, if there's time, we'd be talking about what's going on, you know, for October and November, and just take baby steps. So maybe we can, instead of having this meeting run on, since we're clearly at its natural end, which is great to give people back some time, maybe we could just start putting this together in an email. What are your proposed agenda items or, you know, priorities for the next few months? And that helps Nick, that helps others who are stepping in for Nick while he's out, or for David while he's out. So if we do need, you know, updated reports, people have time to prepare them. If we, you know, want to be involved in budget discussions or other topics, we know around what time of year those things come, and we can plan for those things. So one of the ways to do that is to look at what we've done in years past for these sorts of months. So looking back at previous minutes and agendas from previous years. And that can be a baseline, but then we have to adapt to the current climate that we're in, both with the pandemic, limited staff, and limited committee members. So those would be the steps that I'd propose moving forward. And I'm done, I promise.
Thank you, Mandy. Appreciate that. Somebody have a hand up?
This is Nick. I believe it was Mandy, but she just put it back down. Yep.
Okay. All right. I just hear some yammering in the back of my reader saying something about hand up. So, all right. One last opportunity. Anybody? All right. Hearing none, I'm gonna call our meeting to. Harvey, you have your hand up?
Yeah, Harvey here. I do want to say that Minneapolis Park and Rec, the person that was here today, Carrie, did a very good job with disseminating information to us and passing that along. The designs that were developed, and she had it really planned out. And those intersections and the traffic, I mean, that is something we really need to focus on, is that safety aspect of the intersections. So I do have some concerns for the future for the street, for the individuals who are homeless and live on the streets. And we've seen an increase in that in the parks near that area. And it is an extremely popular area for people who are homeless. So that's something that they may need to consider as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Harvey. Appreciate that. And thank you for the recognition that, you know, once again, staff from the park board step up and really acknowledge the audience that they're speaking to and prepare. And as a result, we have some excellent presentation and some good in response, some good discussion that they're able to take some of our comments and mold them into the next action. So I appreciate that comment and double what you just said, and thank you for recognizing that. All right. Not hearing any other comments, I'm gonna entertain a motion to adjourn. Anyone?
This is Mandy. I'll make the motion. And I also put in chat that it was a great point to raise about the encampments in the area for the park discussion. And we should be considering that those individuals who do not currently have homes represent our community, both with hidden disabilities and visible disabilities.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Mandy. Okay, so it's been moved. Is there a second?
This is Javier. I take the second.
Okay, moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. And hearing
Aye.
no any abstentions, nays. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time today.